Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. There's a brand new report which is revealing to us whether Disney's efforts, so that's Lucasfilm as well as Marvel, their efforts to capture the female audience has been successful. I will say this, semi-successful. Not massively. In fact, resoundingly, women hate Star Wars, which is not really a huge surprise, quite frankly. High female audience for that sort of sci-fi cult-like thing. It's quite a niche, It's broad in the aspect of media, but it is still quite a niche product. So I thought this was quite interesting because it won't come as a shock to anyone to hear that, of course, Disney has been desperately trying to capture the female audience. I don't know why, and I know that will be like, what do you mean by that? Well, the majority of film goers are men. Men are the majority audience when it comes to cinema, theatre. They are the ones which go out to theatrical releases the most. It's not to say that women don't, of course, go to the cinema. Of course they do. We know that they do. But it is men that have predominantly been the movie-going audience forever. And that is just how it is. Now, this data set, again, very, very interesting. Comes to us from Parrot Analytics. So we'll take a look at it. Do hit subscribe if you're new here, guys. Please do turn the bell notifications on. I'm aware that this video's titled something to do with the Acolyte. This is still the Acolyte as well. This still goes for the Acolyte. Now, of course, the dataset itself, does it precede the Acolyte? Yeah, sure. Absolutely it does. But this will still be the same for Star Wars, the Acolyte. And this just goes to show the folly in Disney, Lucasfilm, their desperate attempts to broaden out. You had an audience. You didn't need to capture another audience while simultaneously disenfranchising the audience you did have. And that's the worst thing and the most egregious thing about this, is in an effort to capture this new audience, this mythical modern audience, women is generally what they mean by that, and woke men, you've disenfranchised the audience you did have, which built these great franchises. Really, really quite stupid. There's a way where you could try to capture a new audience, I'm sure, while still keeping the audience you had. It would take smarter minds that work, smarter minds than the people that do work at Disney, Lucasfilm, and Marvel. But hey, like I said, we'll take a look at the information. So let's take a look, shall we? So according to new data, it appears that the female audience for Marvel and Star Wars prefers movies and shows like Loki, The Mandalorian, and the George Lucas films rather than projects specifically targeted at them. I wonder why. Isn't that interesting? Female audience prefer the original things. It's almost like they're discerning and don't like to be pandered to. Fascinating. Fascinating. Now, they do like Loki and the Mandalorian, but, when you look at the data, or when you look at the plot, and the characters of those films, or those series, should I say. I mean, The Mandalorian, for instance, alone, you know why women like it. It's Baby Yoda and it's Pedro Pascal, right? Well, that is why people like it, okay? That is why women like it. That is what it is. There was a lot of hype for Pedro Pascal. There is a giant female contingent that adore Pedro Pascal. And then, women naturally adore cute baby things like Grogu. Anyway, it says here, Echo is actually the least watched among this demographic, and the Disney Star Wars trilogy has also been less female skewed. So this is the data. Okay, and this is by Parrot Analytics. Now it says here that the methodology, okay, for this data set, because that's important, the x-axis, okay, is the share of interactions with a show by male audiences. The y-axis is the share of interactions with a show by audiences over 30. So you can see there, high female audience to the left, and the younger is down to the bottom, higher is the older. So fascinating stuff, actually. If you're looking at it, right, it's quite Marvel series average, right, is the green data set. So the likes of Loki's there. Got Marvel's Agent Carter. So obviously that was going to be naturally quite women focused. But that was at a time where it wasn't as pandery. It felt more organic. Mandalorian, for instance, in orange there. And you've got Andor in orange there as well. That's an older male audience. Makes sense, actually, genuinely. like, none of this should be a surprise. This is what you'd expect. Amazingly, Echo was young man audience. Shame on you, young men. What are you doing? But again, even the Marvel movies, for instance, right? 50%, right? This is the 50% line. You can see right here. And it is predominantly men. It is predominantly men. Of course it is. I mean, the male audience is higher. Anyway, like why do you keep doing this to yourself? Isn't it strange? Like you're purposely jettisoning your audience to appeal to people that don't care anyway, and also to lose the audience you did have of women. Bizarre. It's so bizarre. We don't know why. It's all about, social engineering. So Marvel and Star Wars are more male skewing. The data comes via Parrot Analytics, who released a chart about the demographic distribution of the Star Wars and Marvel franchises. And as it says here, the data overwhelmingly reveals that both Marvel and Star Wars are male skewing. Not a surprise. And that Star Wars particularly is more male skewing and watched by an older audience. Again, not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. Agent Carter, Jessica Jones, Loki are Marvel favourites. So the data actually reveals that 2 cancelled Marvel shows, not part of the MCU, Agent Carter and Jessica Jones. So this was previous, right? This is the old guard who were making this stuff, and it was better. It was a better product. I like Jessica Jones. I thought it was good. Are more favoured among women. So the stuff which they don't feel pandered to, which is quite condescending. So these shows were produced by the now defunct Marvel TV Studios, which was responsible for Marvel Netflix shows like Daredevil, Agents of Carter, S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., sorry, and Agent Carter, which were cancelled by Feige and came at a time when it was not about agenda, but more about putting out quality content, which is true. It could be added that men simply didn't tune in as much, which is true, but I think that they probably did. Which gives these shows a more female skewing audience, but at least the women did tune in. And then weirdly, like, what? Echo? Why is that 80%? It's bizarre, but okay. But again, Echo was aimed at a diverse... It was like the most diverse thing possible for Marvel. And that was what they touted it as. And literally just men watched it. This is what you need to understand, movie studios. And you guys watching, you understand this. Is that there is an audience for this stuff. You can try and twist and change it, but all you do is harm the product, right? It becomes something it's not, and thus becomes unwatchable. Right? Echo, still watched mostly by men, and that's the most diverse thing ever. So WandaVision, She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and Hawkeye, the most female pandering nonsense. Not Hawkeye, but the other stuff. According to data, all these shows have a more male skewing audience. Right. Okay. Pretty certain we got the abuse for those things failing as well, didn't we? Didn't men get abused for that? It was like, you're just all misogynists. We're like the only ones watching. And this data correlates perfectly with the data when it comes to movies, right? Birds of Prey, for instance, a movie which absolutely bombed. God-awful film. Bombed hard, right? That was a film that still majority men went to watch. It's the same here. It's exactly the same. Consumers of this kind of media product are predominantly men. So fans just want good content. We also see women are turning in to watch Loki and The Mandalorian, which is simply good shows. Could it be that women, like most fans, simply want to watch quality content and aren't interested in anything that sends the message? Yes. Again, look at this stuff. Still predominantly men. Always predominantly men. So Star Wars favourites. Women prefer The Mandalorian over Ahsoka. Dave Filoni, mate, you're a failure. Likewise, women prefer The Mandalorian over Ahsoka by a large margin. Alright then. If Ahsoka is closest to The Mandalorian to the right. So Ahsoka is closest to The Mandalorian to the right, which you can see here. Oh no, here. So, yeah, young men watched Ahsoka more. Absolutely hilarious. Ahsoka is geared more towards female crowd, but they aren't tuning in. Mandalorian. Yeah, people wanted to watch that. I mean, there's not really much else to say, to be honest. This isn't a surprise, but, yeah, more women are watching New Hope rather than Disney Star Wars movies. So there you go as well, right? Solo Story, A New Hope. Predominantly women. Well, more women are watching A New Hope than they are Solo A Star Wars Story. And even Guardians of the Galaxy, for instance. Which is quite revealing, I think. So there you go. But, you know, what does this mean for, you know, the likes of the Acolyte? Well, it means it's absolutely a big old pile of crap, to be honest. And diversity itself, because people are aware of what it is and how it functions and how it factors into these kind of things, people don't want to look at diversity either, right? That's what I mean by like, across the board diversity. So, you know, female representation, all this kind of stuff. It's not compelling. People want a good story first and foremost. And this data shows that. There's hard data. So what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, you think it's worth a little bit of money, please do support me via Patreon. Why? Because we do get demonetized here. So it'd be great if you could help out. The link is down below in the description box. Cheers guys, take care. Bye-bye now.